Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. And today I have a special treat for you. I'm here with Deborah Lupien. If you remember from the psychathon that we had a number of weeks ago, and we're still rooting for Kamala even now, then you know who she is and how wonderful she is. And she also is a person very connected to the Akashic records. So thank you for being here with me, Deborah, and agreeing to do this today.
Thank you for asking me. I'm just thrilled to have this conversation.
I know this is going to be a lot of fun. So what I have done is I came up with some questions to ask Charles Dickens. And he's one of my favorite authors. He was born in 1812 and died in 1870 and lived in England, the UK, for his entire life. Charles Dickens started working in a blacking factory when he was 12 years old, putting labels on dye. And after that, as he grew into that, he also started writing his first novel and published it at 24 years old. So very, very ambitious person. He has a lot of books. He has 15 novels. He was considered the greatest novelist of Victorian times. And each of those books, with the exception, I believe, of Hard Times, is about 600 to 800 pages long. Hard Times, much smaller. One of the things that he said in his book that is probably the most important thing that he said, and I love it because it speaks to our world today. No one is useless in this world who lightens the burdens of another. And so with that, I am going to allow Deborah to, first of all, tell you about the experience that she had when she met him and how very different it was for her from other readings that she has done. So I'll open it up to you, Deborah.
Thank you. Yeah, so normally when I go looking for a spirit to have a conversation, it's just, we kind of meet in the Akashic record. So it's, some floral scene or, pastoral scene. But this one was very different. I went in looking for him and I found myself in front of a kind of a pool, but it was a pond pool because it was dark water. And I don't know why, but I felt compelled to dive into this pool. So I dove in, I went down, and when I came out the other side, I had traveled to his time. And he was there waiting for me, which was mind-blowing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
He greeted me. He's wearing a top hat. It's a plain everyday one, not a fancy one. He had a mustache and a camel-colored overcoat. He was carrying a cane that he used as an affectation because he was a very shy man. And he found that when he was in a place where he felt uncomfortable, he could just start twirling his cane, and that helped to calm him down. Isn't that amazing?
It is.
I never would have thought of him as shy.
No, me neither.
He called himself an introvert. And here's the really funny thing. Just to look at him in that getup, he gave me such a sense of Charlie Chaplin as the little tramp.
Wow. Yeah.
Slightly different, but that was the visage I got. It's really interesting. And he took my arm and then we went strolling through this park, which I think he said was Algernon Park. That was also interesting. So, yeah, he was telling me about the cane and focusing on that. And he said it was a technique that he developed over time that had worked really well for him. And he said over time it became a Pavlovian response so he could quickly shift into that calm-centered place. Wow. And he says, today you view me as someone to be respected, admired even, but in my day, respect was sorely lacking. It's a sad fact that many of the great writers throughout time didn't receive their due until they kicked the bucket. He actually said that.
I love that. Yeah.
And then we went into the questions that you gave me.
Okay, wonderful. So of course, I love Charles Dickens to begin with, but at this time of the year, most of us have either seen a movie or we've read the book, A Christmas Carol, and it is still a classic work. And so I thought this would be a real Christmas treat to share with the rest of you. So the first thing I get is Charles, well, you paid a penny a word. That's what I heard.
Well, he said true, because the early days were really rough. And there were times they even paid him a halfpenny or nothing. Because in the early days, there were some people who were functioning under the false impression that he should be grateful for getting published and he shouldn't expect to be paid. Because in their view, they were doing him a favor, raising his profile, and that was payment enough. And he said, raising one's profile does nothing to put warm food in the belly of a hungry man. And he said, like many before me, I paid my dues the hard way. There were people who scoffed at the idea of being a writer. They counseled him that he ought to be sensible, get a steady job as a tradesman. Can you imagine? We would have been robbed.
I know. Yeah, we would have been robbed. Yes.
So to their way of thinking, there was always a need for a tradesman. Then I'd have a steady paycheck and I wouldn't have to live hand to mouth, often relying on the kindness of others to get by. He said this friend or that friend would invite him for a meal to be sure that he was fed and he was able to do his work. He said, I tell you truly, I would not have survived without their support. Never underestimate the importance of a circle of supporters. In my day, some folks prided themselves on being benefactors. You might say they were investing in potential. Were I to have a breakthrough and be recognized as a skilled writer, their esteem would then rise by association, and they'd be admired for their astuteness in supporting a star on the rise.
Wow, that's amazing. Because it was, I know that when he wrote for a newspaper, and the excerpts would come out, and they would also, people in America would wait at dockside in order to get the next episode of whatever it was that he had been writing. That's beautiful. Did he feel underappreciated?
Well, sorry, is that a question there? I think I'm missing. Oh, yes. Sorry.
Yeah.
I think I mixed them together.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah. So he didn't necessarily feel underappreciated, but it sounds like he had to pay his dues in so many words.
I think it was more that, and he took it as this is just the way it is in his world.
The way it is.
Yeah. So there was a question in between there. That's where I missed it. So I do have.
Oh, I'm so very sorry. Well, so he was not a very nice husband. Let's put it that way. I think he had, I can't remember how many children, but a number of children with his wife. And there was, he had an actress that ended up being his mistress at some point. And he was trying to be such a politically correct person at the time that he walled up his house so that his wife lived on one side and he lived on the other side of the house. Was there anything is that true, Charles? I mean, is that what happened?
Well, he has a slightly different take on that story.
I had a feeling.
Yeah. He says, you claim I was not a nice husband. Has it ever crossed your mind that perhaps the missus wasn't nice? We were ill-suited to one another. Our relationship was never going to work. She had expectations I couldn't meet. We had a brief infatuation that quickly faded. After that, they were left with a cold, hard reality that neither one of them were getting their needs met. In truth, their relationship was on life support for a very long time. And then he did admit, perhaps I was cruel handling things the way I did. At the time, it seemed fair. In my view, she'd done nothing to help advance me, so half was generous. Besides, she had a little something on the side, so I knew she had a soft place to land.
Wow, now there's something. Yeah, that's awesome. Oh my goodness. So I had heard, and this wasn't part of the questions, but I had heard that he wrote his books in the living room with all the children all around, the whole family milling all around it. He was actually able to write. And of course, he would have had to write by hand.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of admiration for somebody that can do something like that at that time period. So I just want to say that about it. Yeah. So how did he come up with the idea of a builder's role?
Sorry, before you go there, let's go back and do the underappreciated question.
Oh, okay.
Next.
Okay. Did he feel underappreciated?
He said no more than other aspiring writers. You have
Okay.
to understand that a writer on the way up gets little recognition and lots of scorn. We're labeled dreamers or worse, lazy underachievers.
Mhm.
Common folk are puzzled by our choice to give up the finer things in life to pursue this dream. For my part, I feel sad for them that they no longer believe in dreams if they ever did. I
Mm.
had a fire in my belly to tell stories. They practically flowed out of every orifice. So there's your answer about working with all the kids around. It just flowed. He was probably
Just
channeling.
flowed.
Yeah,
He was very, very good at explaining, that he had certain stereotypes or archetypes that he would bring in, and the names for them were fabulous. I mean, the things that he could make up were wonderful.
yeah. And he went on to say, I was destined to write. No sense
Yeah,
fighting it. That's who I was at my core. I was
sure.
driven to write, and nothing satisfied that itch like getting a new piece published. Even for little or no pay, the satisfaction remained. The feeling I experienced at being published must be similar to what birds feel when they witness their little fledglings fly successfully from the nest. The sense and the satisfaction of accomplishment is pure bliss.
Just the articulation and the eloquence of his statements
Isn't it?
it is
Amazing.
beautiful. It's beautiful. Thank you. It's like he's alive, and yeah, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. So he did not come up probably with the idea of Bildungsromans, but a Bildungsroman is a coming of age story, and he wrote a lot of them. He wrote Oliver Twist, and he wrote about benefactors, as you mentioned earlier. How did this whole idea come up? Did he feel like those characters? I wondered.
Well, he says it's the classic hero's journey reimagined for the time in which I lived. There was a
Right.
stark contrast between the poor and the rich. It was one of those in your face truths. I took great delight in enhancing the story with creative twists to make it more endearing. Most folks
Mhm.
can relate to being the hero of their own story. It draws them in, and before they know it, they're invested in the characters, cheering them on to a better life, just as they hope and dream for themselves. The obstacles my heroes had to overcome were relatable, and they left my readers feeling hopeful that they too could overcome. No matter which one is rich or poor, we all face obstacles to achieving our dreams. I didn't consciously plan all of that. It came to me over time with trial and error, noticing what parts of my stories drew people in. Once I saw the big picture, the pieces fell into place, and that became a repeatable formula.
Mhm. Well, it worked, and it's beautiful.
You
Thank
know
you so
what's
much.
fascinating about that? The analysis that he did to come up with all of that.
Yeah. Yes. And just as a conversational, it's like he's been waiting 200 years to
Yeah,
talk, to be able to be heard. Wow. It's just beautiful. It's wonderful. Did any of his characters come from real life people he knew?
certain aspects of my characters came from real life. They were an
Mhm.
amalgam rather than a replica. People who knew me might believe that a certain character was based on them because they could relate to that one aspect. Some made a parlor game out of guessing the real identity of my characters. I found it amusing because they were all mistaken. The real people were more two-dimensional than my characters. I'd never insult them by saying that, of course, but it was better for the career to let them have that fantasy.
Sure. Wow. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. How did he feel on his deathbed? Did he feel as though he was like Scrooge?
Not at all. I
Okay.
understood Scrooge inside and out, having created him. Truthfully, I felt peace and satisfaction at having lived life on my terms, and I'd say making a success out of it. Everyone wants to be remembered. Here you are, centuries later, still talking about me and my work. How could one man ask for more?
Oh, absolutely. That's beautiful. That's lovely. Um, I wonder if he's fascinated with the video versions of his book, A Christmas Carol.
I salute those who have the foresight to understand the underlying message and evoke it in such creative ways. I squeal with delight each time a new version is created. In an odd way, they're like my offspring, and I'm a proud papa.
Oh, that's so cute. I love that. That's right. Is there anyone who plays his favorite Scrooge, either on stage or in a movie?
Seymour Hicks, both on stage and in the movie.
Wow.
That surprised me. Yeah.
That's
And
surprising.
then he went on to say that people need to believe in hope in a life where ultimately everything turns out all right. They need to have faith that they too will find their own happily ever after. It's what makes life worthwhile. After all, without hope, where would any of us be?
Right. Wow, that's beautiful. So I guess you've answered the question, who played the famous Scrooge, and what lessons did he take from his life on Earth?
It may sound cliche, but nevertheless true.
Mm-hmm.
Follow your dreams. Be true to yourself. Never give up. Everyone deserves a shot at love and happiness. Anything is possible when you practice the golden rule.
Wow, that's wonderful. Does he like any writers, British or world writers, that he wishes he knew personally today?
This one really stopped me in my tracks. Amanda Gorman stands out for me. She's brave and true, earnest and honest, sensible and grounded. She hasn't let fame go to her head. I predict she'll leave a lasting legacy. There are others I might mention, but I'll refrain because they're not as grounded as Miss Gorman, and I don't want to distract them from their path by calling them out. And then he goes on to say, okay, I'll mention one more. M. Night Shyamalan. That gentleman is a man after my own heart. I appreciate the way he crafts his stories. They're compelling and unpredictable, keeping the readers engaged until the end. And then he says, he's enough like me that he might be me.
Oh, wow. I can see that. I can.
Yeah. When it's pointed out, it's
amazing. It's amazing. Yes. Wow. I mean, because he just sort of burst on the scene a number of years ago, and the movies that he's done and the creativity and the art that he's done have kept us wrapped with attention and surprised by, oh wow, that's awesome. Wow.
And he had one more little tidbit for you. He said, okay. P.S. My heirs thank you for continuing to support my work with your hard-earned dollars.
Still trying to get the monies coming in. Good for you, Charles. Good for you. Wow, that's amazing. So as far as a follow-up question, I guess the only thing I'd like to know is, how did your affair with Ellen Turnin begin, since she was only 18 and you were 45 at the time? And I know she was an actress.
Okay. So, Mr. Dickens, Charles, are you available? Can you tell us about your affair with Ellen Turnin, the actress? How did that get started? He's thinking about it, considering what he wants to reveal.
Sure.
Yeah. So what can you tell us? Anything? Is there anything you feel comfortable saying about that? She was beautiful. He was just gobsmacked at her. And he saw her on stage. He was drawn to her. He became sort of a fan. He sent her a note and let her know how much he appreciated her performance, which, of course, being an actress, she was very flattered. And so they struck up a friendship. And being of similar kind of minds, that creative side to both of them attracted them. And it kind of evolved organically from that friendship.
That's beautiful.
So it wasn't planned.
Yeah. Yeah. There was some thought that you yourself wanted to be an actor before you became a writer.
So, Charles, did you have aspirations to be an actor? Maybe when I was a child, it was a fleeting thought, but never seriously. Writing was in my blood. It consumed me. And I'm very, very happy at the path that my life took.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Well, Deborah and Mr. Dickens, thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Thank you for asking, because it was such a delight to have that conversation with him.
I'm so glad. I know you said he was excited when you contacted him. Yeah.
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 So for any other mediums out there who want to have a chat with Charles Dickens, he's open.
He's available. Wow. That's beautiful. Thank you so much. And Mr. Dickens, your story is one of the most, well, all your stories are very important, but this Christmas Carol story is a real important one for the season. And every time we think of you, we think of how great a Victorian writer you were and still remain in our world. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.